we are going to start our webinar. So welcome here to our second webinar. This is a DigitAF webinar. DigitAF is a European project and we develop digital tools to boost agroforestry. And today is our second webinar. Today's topic is financial tools for agroforestry. So you will discover practical digital tools for financial management in agroforestry. And we have 3 speakers for today. So we have Laura Cumplido-Martin, we also have Sarah Carton and Rico Hübner as speakers for today. So let's start. We will start with Laura, I guess. But first of all, I just have one more thing to say. Sorry, if you have a question, you can write it down on the Q&A space. We have a dedicated space for that, the Q&A. And we will have a dedicated time at the end of the webinar to answer them. And if, unfortunately, we don't have time to answer them all, we will send an email to you to answer them. So, Laura, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Roman. Good morning, everyone. My name is Laura Cumplido-Martin, and I work at Cranfield University as a research fellow within the Agroforestry team and work closely with Professor Paul Burgess and my colleague Anil Graves. So today's agenda, can't seem to move on slides. 1 second, please. There we are. So in today's webinar, first of all, I'm gonna introduce a little bit the topic and the project under which we've been working on these financial tools. And the tools we are going to introduce to you are Intact, FarmSafe, and Agroforestry. Yeah, my 2 colleagues, Sarah Carton from ILVO and Rico Hübner from DeFAF, will introduce their tools. And at the end, we will have some brief conclusions. And after the conclusions, we will have time for questions and answers. So to start with, I wanted to introduce briefly the main difference between a pure financial assessment and a full economic assessment. So we're all on the same page and it's clear to everyone what we mean with each of them. So a pure financial assessment is done from the perspective of farmer or the land manager, and it focuses on actual cash flows. The farmer produces some goods and he gets cash for those goods. And a full economic assessment is done from the perspective of the society or the government, and it includes non-monetary benefits such as biodiversity and landscape aesthetics and enjoyment of the landscape as a whole for society. So the project we have been working on since mid-2022 is called DigitAF, and the aim was to develop digital tools to help agroforestry meet climate, biodiversity, and farming sustainability goals, linking field and the cloud. It was a consortium of 32 partners. It will end soon, sadly. It's finishing in July this year. But yeah, hopefully we will continue working on these topics because there is lots left to do. And we have a very nice website that you can access. And within the website, we've developed what we call the tool database. And we will tell you more about that one later on in the presentation. As part of the project, early on we created 6 living labs in 6 countries across Europe. And within those living labs, the participants are a mix of different stakeholders, ranging from farmers to policymakers and other stakeholders in the value chain. And among the farmers in those living labs, we've been working very closely with specific farmers. to give you a really quick overview, in the UK, we've been working with a farmer who has ILVO arable system consisting on fruit trees and arable crops. In the Netherlands, the farmer we've been working more closely with is a dairy farmer that has an alley cropping system of walnut. In Italy, the farmer has a ILVO arable system consisting of poplar trees and arable crops. In Germany, the farmer has a really nice farm of different agroforestry systems integrated, but for the financial work, we've been focusing on the soil rotation copy systems. In Finland, we focused on their ILVO arable systems consisting on fruit trees and arable crops. And in the Czech Republic, Czechia, sorry, we have been working with a farmer that has cattle and combination with fruit trees. Within the project, some specific tasks focus on financial work, and we've been doing that in small teams. But we realized early on that there was a wider interest from other partners to participate in developing financial tools, and that's why in 2023 the executive board proposed the creation of a financial working group with particular effort from our colleague Bert Rebens at ILVO, and the participants of this financial working group come from all different work packages. It was open invitation, and anybody was free to take part. And within the activities that we have organized, I'm mentioning 2 international workshops on financial tools for agroforestry, one in November 2024 in the Netherlands and one in February 2025 in the UK. And those workshops were not only for project members, they were open to anyone. And we indeed got participants from lots of organizations, including banks, consultants, and yeah, they were very, very useful workshops. If you attended, you know they were. And as outputs, I want to briefly mention the contribution to successful submission of 3 project deliverables. We are currently working on some financial fact sheets that we will hopefully publish soon on the project website. And we are also working on some scientific articles that will be coming soon, hopefully this year at some point. This is an overview of the DigitAF tools and data catalog that I mentioned earlier. Is in our website, and at the moment it contains 50 tools and 31 datasets. Tools, I'm not sure if we will be adding many more, but for sure we need to be adding more data sets, and it's all free to access, and you are most welcome to explore it and have a play. And yeah, if you have any questions, please contact any of us. And I'm gonna leave the floor now to my colleague Sarah Carton from ILVO to present the Intact tool. Thank you, Sarah.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Carton from ILVO. Thank you for the introduction. I will quickly open my slides. Let's see. Okay. So I have been working on the tool Intact, and why we started this was because there was a lack of understanding of the costs and benefits for starting an agroforestry project. And I wanted to ensure an easy understanding about those costs and benefits of the 3 components specifically. And that's how Intact rolled out. It's guiding users through the relevant 3 extrapolated costs and benefits. So what is, well, Intact is developed throughout different projects like DigitAF, but also AgroMix and FarmLife. And it's a financial tool which can be used to get insight into the costs and benefits of trees and shrubs within like an agroforestry project for the first 20 years after planting the trees. So the simulation time is 20 years. The first version covers the majority of aspects of the investment and maintenance costs. Also an estimate of the expected income from trees and shrubs, especially for species that are frequently planted in those agroforestry systems. And it's a partial analysis. That means that only the tree and shrub component is taken into account. Sadly, no crop or animal production is taken into account yet. The tool architecture is as follows. So there are different modules. You have the starting point, which includes some field characteristics and hourly wages for labor. There is a costs module that has different steps that are necessary to take. For instance, to purchase the trees, prepare the land, to plant trees, to protect the trees from animals, tree management, so more like activities, and harvest costs. And when that is finished, the benefit module will start, which has a difference between the fruit and nut yield and the wood yield. If it's completed, then the cost-benefit analysis will be performed. And just to explain a unit scale, so the user specifies the area of the agroforestry project in hectares, and the final results will be expressed per plot and also per hectare. And on the next slide, I will play a video which I recorded, in which I explain the tool step by step.
Sorry, Sarah. I don't think we can hear the video.
Yeah,
there's no sound.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I just wanted to ask you, let me quickly check if it's the next slide. Okay, so you cannot hear my recording. Laura, can you hear my recording?
I cannot hear anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then I will just explain while doing so. Okay. Let me see. This is the first step. Here you fill out all information about the basic information. So the area of the plots versus 2 hectares, information about the trees and tree rows. And here is information about the hourly wages. So there's 3 types of labor: contractor, seasonal workers, and own labor. We also have included some buttons where you can click for more information, like a question mark button or other pop-ups that are available. If everything is filled out, you can click on next, and then the second page appears, but there's also a bar that you can use above. So this is the cost module, and here you can select all the tree species. I've selected apple, cherry, pear, nashi pear, and pear varieties, but there's more varieties that you can choose, or more species that you can choose. And in this step, you can really really define the tree types, or the length of growing method, or the number of trees you have. And below you have an overview of the hectare and how many trees per hectare you have. So here now is the second step, the planting. So here I can select different activities about the plant activities. So loosening the soil, deep digging. It's possible to click on yes or no. Yes, you apply it. No, you won't apply it. And if you want to perform the work yourself, you can click on yes, so the own labor. or you can click on no if you want to do the contractor letter work. So the next step is mulch. So for next step is the planting the trees. So there's different options, different methods to plant trees, and Intact includes different methods that you can explore. For instance, there is like a motorized ground drill, but also manual planting. It's all included there. And a nice thing is that you can also see, okay, how much labor is taken into account, like the hours per plots. This step is mulch. So here you can say, oh, I would like to have compost or wood chips. And also if you want to apply to all trees, yes or no. Another step is like the support materials. So if you would like to support a tree with a pole or a bamboo stick, then it's also possible to adjust that here. The next step is for the individual protection. So to protect the trees from animals, there is different methods, of course, but that's based on the animals that have access to the plot. So here I can see like, okay, there's cattle, and then define, okay, horses, cattle, or goats are present. And based on the animal, there's a recommendation of the type of protection. If you're not sure like which it is, we have a nice pop-up. It's a visual catalog that gives all descriptions of the support types that are present. And the next one, it shows the collective fencing. So that is to protect the trees collectively. So to put an electric fence around the plots. That's also an option that is present. For tree management, we have a different page, so it's possible to see all kinds of activities that are common, like adding mulch, mowing the tree strip, weed control, pruning. There's different options. And what is nice about this tool is that you can also define the frequency. If you want to apply it every 4 years, you can click on 0, on year 4, year 8, year 12. So you can really make a system or like a management that is suitable to your agroforestry projects. Then the next step is for harvest. So we have a harvest tool called Mimosa, which can calculate cost for especially for nut and apple harvest, and then the costs can be calculated in Mimosa and then also be loaded into Intact. But for now, there's also a manual harvest page that's there you can calculate the costs for manual harvests. And at the very end, there is a total overview of all investment costs at the left and the operational costs at the right. So at the left, there is costs that are like made at year 0, so the planting year, and operational costs are costs that are either that they are dedicated to a specific year. And that's dependent on the frequency that you decided. And there's also some graphs below to present it. See, and then it's loading. Then we go to next to the benefits overview. And here there is the yield of the nuts and fruits. The wood yield is present, but it's not working. So the yield of woods are not taken into account. So I only focus now on the area above. There are some prices, the price per kilogram, and you can change them. So the blue numbers, you can change them. For instance, if I want to sell my pears for €3 per kilogram, then I can adjust that. And also, for instance, for apple, I could change it to €3 per kilogram and then automatically update it. And then I go to the cost benefit analysis, which is the final stage. So here is a large table, and there's all the income and costs per year, and there's a graph below, and there's also a button to switch between plot and hectare per hectare level, and it will also like change. Yeah, there is a button to generate a report, and you can click on that, and then a report will be created for you. It summarizes all options that you clicked, so that's nice. That's you can use this really as a scenario. And there's also all assumptions and the disclaimer at the bottom. So it's important to read that carefully. All right. That was the tool explained very quickly. Of course, like we can build tools, but it's also really interesting to test them on real farms. So I used the Italian case, like DigitAF's Italian case study to see, okay, how can I use Intact, and does Intact really give a good result, or like a realistic result? And there I there is the living lab, and we have two plots. So the one with the white rectangles, this is a silvo arable system with a 3-year crop rotation, so arable with trees. And I tried to simulate this in Intact. The trees are oak and poplar. And as I mentioned earlier, crop production cannot be simulated yet, so that's not included. So we used a combination of default data that are all referenced within Intact, and also data from the farm managers of the Italian Living Lab to identify the costs and benefits of the production. So this is all important input data for the modeling. And so at the left we have some inputs like the hectares. It's roughly 3 hectares. We have 284 trees, etc. And at the right, you can see important costs. And let me see. And this, this is the result of this explorative simulation. I want to emphasize that it's an explorative simulation. So as you can see, this simulation does not look really good, but I will explain to you later why this is the case. But is at the next page. Yeah, I wanted to give the important remarks. So I did a simulation of the timber production, so poplar and oak. But of course, that's really difficult to have such a system to be profitable in a 20-year period. Oak is a slow-growing species, so normally you would harvest that around after 50 years. So yeah, a 20-year period is not does not fit in Intact simulation time. And poplar is a fast-growing species, so it fits Intact simulation time. However, there is an expensive fence of 20,000 euros to protect the trees and the crops from wildlife. But yeah, this is such a high investment that only looking at the trees in a 20-year period didn't seem like, the system turned out not to be profitable. And also turned out that the wood price used in this explorative simulation was too low. The price turned out to be suitable for firewood, but not for timber. So with recent numbers, we could see that the price ranges between 100 and 150 euros per cubic meters, which is, almost 3 times higher. And so a good next step is to use all lessons learned into a new simulation. So I wanted to illustrate again, Intact would definitely benefit from an extended simulation period beyond the 20 years, especially when simulating timber yield. And Intact would also benefit from including the crop production. So if there would have been an income from the crops, this scenario could have looked much differently. So this model, Intact, was designed for understanding the costs and benefits of the tree component only. And we already made some adjustments in the Excel model. So Intact can only apply 1 hourly wage per step, but within that step, multiple tasks can be performed by different people. For instance, if I have, let's say I want to plant the trees, maybe I could have 50% done by the contractor and 50% could be done by the farmer, but that was not possible. And now it was adjusted accordingly. And Intact calculates cost based on the tree size. However, the user could only select one tree size per species. For instance, if I have an apple that has a high stem, or I have an apple that has a half stem, I could only click one species, but the Excel model was adjusted so I could have both the apple half stem and apple high stem trees. So the next steps are really to rerun the Italian case study with new data and a longer time span, which is possible in the Excel model, but not in the online model. And also to get the Intact 1.0 version web tool up and running again in 2026. It was currently offline due to technical issues, but yeah, there should be some improvements soon. Also, next step is to implement the above mentioned adjustments to the web tool and also to develop the tool in Python to allow tool interoperability. As always, it's good to put the references out there. And then that was it for me for Intact. So then I go back to FarmSafe.
Hello, it's me again. I'll share my screen. Okay, so now I'm gonna introduce you to FarmSafe. FarmSafe is a tool that was developed under the SAFE project that took place between 2001 and 2005. The tool allows comparing the financial benefits and costs of arable, forest, and agroforestry systems together in the same scenario. So it's really versatile. I'm not expecting you to read all the text in the slide, so please, it's just to show you how it looks in our repository system. And the authors of the tool, among them my colleagues Paul Borges and Anil Graves, have been working with this tool for more than 20 years now. And it really has become Cranfield's star bioeconomic model because they've been working with this tool for so long. Myself, only a few years, so nothing compared to their experience. But yeah, like I said, it's a very versatile tool, and it was developed in combination with another tool. So the YieldSafe tool and the FarmSafe tool are two sister tools that were developed to complement each other. So the YieldSafe tool is a biophysical model that takes into account plot management data, weather data, tree parameters, crop parameters, and soil parameters, adds them all together into YieldSafe and produces a yield, estimates a yield and a tree yield and a crop yield. So with that tree yield and that crop yield, you can take to FarmSafe and you can create a simulation of your financial results, and that's the way they work. So they should really work together. It's possible also to just use YieldSafe to stimulate yields for other purposes and use FarmSafe alone. You don't have to use them together, but they do work well together. Next, I'm gonna quickly explain the three working levels of FarmSafe. So first, FarmSafe is a financial analysis model that can work at the farm scale, what we call the unit scale, and the plot scale. So the farm scale is a heterogeneous area managed as a single business. The unit scale is a homogeneous area of a specific size managed as a unit, but can potentially include a range of different enterprises. And the plot scale is a 1 hectare area that is based on gross or net margins per hectare. The architecture of FarmSafe is composed of different modules, and the picture, the graph in the slide is not very clear. Apologies for that, but you can see the 3 different levels that are possible to work, and then you have all your input data on the left-hand side of the slide. So you have your arable system, all the finances related both to the arable and the agroforestry system, and you have all the data related to your trees, values, grants, costs, and there is a module that is specifically designed to provide basic input data as well as tweak and change a lot of things, including a sensitivity analysis and provide different scenarios that way. This is a quick demo that I recorded of the actual model, so you can see it. Please let me know if there is sound, Sarah or somebody. If there's no sound, I'll just talk along the video as it plays.
Yes, there's no sound, Laura.
There's no sound. Okay. Go back.
Live presentation.
No problem. So yeah, FarmSafe, as you can see, is an Excel-based model and composed of a series of tabs that you can complete and move along from the first tabs to the following tabs. You start from the arable system and you complete your sorry, it's going a bit too fast compared to what I'm saying. Yeah, so in your arable rotation, you complete the rotation for however many years you can. FarmSafe allows you to complete as many years as you want, or up to 60. Well, there is a high level and is quite versatile in that sense. You enter your yields and you enter the byproduct of your yields. Then you move on to the forestry system if you have one. You don't need to have one. Here you complete all the data related to your trees. After you moved on to the agroforestry system, where both previous tabs come together. So you get all the data. Then moving on to the arable finance, with all the finance data related to your arable system is inputted, and you add your prices, your variable costs, your fixed costs, and after we move on to the cost associated with the trees, we have the establishment costs, maintenance costs, pruning costs, admin, cleaning, clear felling, and even harvesting costs. Then we complete the value of the trees, either in timber or in actual yield of fruit, for instance. And then we move on to the tree grant, and we complete the value of your grants. And once we have all the data, we move on to the options and results tab. And in this tab is the manager tab, where we can really select our databases that we have inputted before, and we can observe all the results in this big table for the 3 different systems: arable, forestry, and silver arable system that combines all the systems that you wish. And to the right-hand side of this tab, you can plot a lot of things. So you could, for example, see the yields, and you can see discounted net margins, undiscounted net margins, net present values. So there's really lots of data you can plot. Sorry. Yeah. So now I'm going to show you some results that we recently did for a specific case study based in the UK. The case study farm selected was a hop farm belonging to RSPB. For those who are overseas and not aware of RSPB, is the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds. And this is a farm that is managed as a commercial arable farm and is Fair to Nature certified. It has a total area of 181 hectares with 6 hectares of pasture and 11 hectares of agroforestry. You can see in the map, the red boundary is the whole farm and the yellow boundary is the agroforestry trial. So the design of the trial is a wide alley cropping system of 24 meters between the tree strips and 6 meters wide wildflower strips. And then 3 meters between the trees within the tree rows. The crops is a rotation of winter wheat, winter barley, winter oilseed rape, spring barley, and winter beans. And the trees planted, it was a combination of deciduous trees, hazel, and apple. But for the purposes of our simulation, we have only used apple trees because that's the one limitation that currently FarmSafe has. We cannot select more than one tree species in one system. Next, in terms of the input data, for the arable rotation, like I explained in the video, we gather all the data related to the areas, the yields, prices, grants, variable and fixed costs. And for the agroforestry system, we collected all the data for the establishment, weeding, watering, wildflower strips, pruning, harvesting, packaging, and clear felling costs. And we worked under the assumption for the modeling scenario that we are expecting a peak apple yield of 45 kilograms per tree, and also that there was no effect of trees on the crop growth within the alleys. And that is because the alleys are quite wide, 24 meters, and because the apple trees are pruned intensively. So those are the reasons why we assumed that. And this is a sneak peek of one of the graphs that I showed you earlier, specifically showing the discounted net margins in pounds per hectare. And as you can observe, the value at the end of the simulation period of the discounted net margins is almost, not quite, but almost double for the silvo arable system compared to the arable system. So this is quite hopeful scenario because 45 kilograms per tree is quite a good yield of apples, but it could go lower. It could happen that the peak apple yield doesn't reach that level, and it could be something like 15 or 20. And yeah, if that's the case, that's very easy to change in FarmSafe, and we can stimulate financial results with lower yields and also with higher yields. It could happen that the trees decide to grow very well and surprise us. We get yields of 50 kilograms per tree, in which case benefits will be much higher than shown here. After working closely with the farmers, we asked them what their views on the agroforestry system are, and they gave us very good feedback. So summarizing very quickly, the benefits they observe are increased biodiversity. They said they've noticed loads more insects, but the full impact is to be determined. Increased community engagement. People have shown loads of interest in the agroforestry trial. Potential and soil carbon benefits that diversified income and increased aesthetics. The wildflowers look really pretty when they are in bloom, and also the tree lines provide a break in the landscape, which is also nice for everyone to see. And it could also act as a bit of a windbreak in the field if the field is windswept. And the disadvantages, main one is that it's expensive to establish, and it takes time, and it takes finances. Complicates the business slightly, and it was a steep learning curve for them to learn how to look after the system. And of course, there is small reduction of income from the field in the areas where the tree strips are, and they can't be cropped anymore for the first 5 years. Hopefully, once the trees are in full production, that will change and will improve the situation. Because at the moment the trees were planted in 2022, 2021, 2022, so they are only a few years, and they still haven't produced much apples. So, having worked with FarmSafe, I wanted to give you some reflections from myself and my colleagues on after having used FarmSafe. So the main limitation, like I mentioned earlier, is that the model only incorporates one tree species at a time in a single system. And in terms of the evolution of FarmSafe and its expansions, because my colleagues have been working on it for so many years, FarmSafe has been adapted to evaluate environmental externalities, among them greenhouse gas emissions for farm operations and manufacturing of machinery and agrochemicals, carbon sequestration for above ground biomass, soil erosion losses by water, and nitrogen leaching. So by doing so, the model has become a partial economic assessment. It was originally a pure financial assessment, but it's now a partial economic assessment. We have the option. In terms of the adaptations we have recently made to the original FarmSafe during the DigitAF project, for it to be working with the specific case studies, we've added water irrigation costs for the tree establishment phase. We've added packaging cost for apples, and we have changed how the labor is calculated for the harvesting operation, so it changes according to the yield. So labor time changes according to the yield. And that's me regarding FarmSafe, and now my colleague Rico Hübner will introduce his tool, Agroforestry. Rico, whenever you're ready, please.
Yes, thank you, Laura. I'm trying to share my screen. You see my screen in full?
Yes.
All right. Hi, my name is Rico Hübner. I'm from Germany. I'm from the German Agroforestry Association, part of the DigitAF project. And I will tell you a little bit about the Agroforestry calculator today. Yes, the Agroforestry calculator is a tool that has been developed over many years by the DeFAF, and we are aiming at rolling this out a little bit more to make it available to a wider community. And it's a very economic tool. It's focusing strongly on the energy wood production, and it uses the technology of a dynamic investment calculation, and it can be very helpful for farmers, which is the primary target group, and maybe also planners, to make decision whether they should invest in energy wood, how much could be the share of energy wood, how will it affect the economic performance of the entire farm business, and also more precisely how much could be the share between the tree component and the crop component. So it's a very simple program. It runs in Excel. It uses macros, and it's also easy to customize the default values according to the market situation or according to the preference of the farmers. So, as I said, it's a dynamic investment calculation, and we are using some very standard economics indicators like the capital value and the annuity, which tells you an annual payback discounted over the years. And this integrated database is one of the limitations. Of course, now has a lot of German data, but as you can put in your own parameters, it's also adaptable to other regional contexts. For example, one of the core data that is essential for any economic analysis is the price development of wood chips. So here I just show you the example how much the price fluctuates over the year. So you see here 4 graphs, and 2 are for the north and the south of Germany, because they have different price levels, and also depending on the water content, as you usually face costs for drying, then you have a different price. So you can clearly see here with the war on Ukraine how much the price for wood chips went up, and it seems still that the price for wood chip remains at a very high level at the moment. So wood chip based energy production and heating is currently an economically very interesting business. Another important input is, of course, the level of productivity. This is not only for the trees that grow, but also for the arable crops. So as the tool models the revenues for the arable crops in parallel to the revenues from the growing trees. One of the core inputs here is the land productivity that you need to input. So, for example, if you have a very high land productivity above 45 out of 100, that means you can grow pretty much any crop like wheat and also sugar beet and so on. Whereas below 23 points, that's considered the marginal side, where you often grow very extensive cultures like rye or lupina or sardella. So that's you need to know for the area. Here is a map of Brandenburg, which is our living lab area in the DigitAF project. And you can already see how heterogeneous the productivity levels are distributed. And this is an important input. Coming to the program, it's pretty straightforward. So it's using a color scheme, and that means if there are any fields that are marked red, these are absolutely mandatory fields that need to be filled out. But the good part is that often we have default values that you can change in case you're not too sure what to put in. Gray ones are output values and white ones are additional ones that can be added, additional factors. In order to know whether you are right on track, there's also always a 3-step counter, and that tells you directly whether you're right on track. And if you receive a green mark, a green check mark, then all the information you need to run the model are complete. And on the right side of this, here you can see how you can switch easily from the standard value or the reference value to the individual value. So in case you're not too sure whether the reference value maybe is overestimating or is too low, then you can easily switch to the individual value and put in your own figures. For example, if you know very well how much you harvest from a certain crop in, let's say, tons, or how much the price is for a certain crop for wheat or so on, you can also always put your individual values. And similarly, here is a more detailed view of the model when it comes to the yields. And for example, here is the yield of wood chips. That is the average yield per year in tons per hectare. And for example, in this case, it's 8 tons, but you can also put there 12 or 15 tons. And also you can put here the calculate automatically the yield per rotation. And what's also important is that you need to determine what water content your wood chips would have while selling them. As you've seen in the previous graph, that the price is very much dependent on the water content. And this is also important here, marked with number 4, that you can add here or factor in the price if you need to dry it, or if you're losing some of the materials in the handling and storage and shipping. All that can be stored in the Excel sheet as a scenario, so you can run different scenarios, and you can also, when you go back into the program, load the saved inputs into your scenario. Coming to our case study here, this is the Living Lab farm of Thomas Domin, which is located in the very south of Brandenburg, and it's a rather dry area, but Thomas started to plant agroforestry already back in 2015, so he's very experienced, and he extended his systems over the years. So the yellow surrounded arable land, arable fields, whereas the green one are grassland areas. So in the arable, you can now see the silvo arable system where he grows poplar and a little bit also of black locust in a short rotation system. These are here marked with A102 and so on and so on. And he also has some poplars and also alders in a riparian buffer strips, and he also has planted some mixed hardwood species in an interesting system that combines short rotation fast growing poplars with hardwood species. He has a silvopastoral system with chickens near the farmhouse, and also another one on the grassland. And only a few years ago, he also planted allays of different fruit trees, so-called orchard allays, usually on old pieces of land that used to be old fieldways and communal connections between the villages that have long time been lost. On the grassland here is a silvopastoral system where he grows black locust, but also alder and others and willow. And he had a chicken coop there, but now it's more or less grazed by cows. And in a very small area at the very rear of the farm, he also has a traditional fruit orchard. Anyhow, this is just to give you an overview about the living labs, very big and complex, but we are now focusing only on the arable land. So that's the part A that I showed you that was animated in the very beginning. Yeah, so what we already know, that the yield level in this area is very low. So Thomas only has about 22 out of 100 points for the crop yield, because this would also classify as the area 5, which is the least productive zone. Here in this little map, it's in the very south. He currently grows in the arable agroforestry system a ratio of 92% of arable crops to 8% of woody crop. And the latest producer price where he could sell his wood chip was 123 euro per ton. And this was the base of this estimate, but when you remember the graph, it can be up to 200 or even higher. So we are calculating with an interest rate of 4% over a time of 30 years, and we are defining the rotation of the short rotation copies to be 5 years. So we have a total of 6 rotations. We are using here poplar as the main tree species, but also various others are in the program. We are not using the enhancement factor for positive effects on the crop, which you can put in as a percentage. As you know, you may have positive effects with respect to the microclimate and so on. You define the water content of the wood chips on 35%, and the producer price I already mentioned, and other costs, for example, setting up the field, using a GPS, additional soil preparation, the cost of planting materials. So there's a number of figures that the farmer would need or the planner would need to estimate before. And harvesting costs, as he's processing the woody material on site, there's no transport cost for a shredder, and also the reconversion costs after the total running time of 30 years you can price in. Putting all these figures into the tool, we will receive some results. So here you can see a similar graph that Laura just presented that shows you the time of 30 years on the x-axis and the annuity in euro per hectare on the y-axis. And when we take all the standard rotation that the Thomas is using and estimate the yields and so on over the 30 years, you would result in a mean annual margin of 64 euros per hectare across those 30 years. However, this program does not account for any funding, direct payments, eco schemes, and so on. So it's purely the figures coming from the direct costs and the direct yields and direct sales. So over the years, we could thus accumulate a revenue of 15,700 euros per hectare, and this was calculated with the current ratio. And over the years, if you calculate it for the part that is with the trees, you would receive a revenue of 22,000 euros and have comparably lower costs of only about 10,000 euros. So that would be a profit, right? So that means in the pure crop, you would make a loss, but please consider the very low yield level, and also there's no additional funding from the agriculture policy, and you would have a positive margin. That means a profit from the woody part. And now you put the two together, that says 92% is arable crop, 8% is woody crop. You would reduce your negative annuity from 64 that we just mentioned for the arable crop to only a loss of 34 euros per hectare and year, and the total net present value would be a loss of 4,000 euros. Now, the crucial questions, of course, is, okay, how much would I need to increase the woody component in order to be plus minus 0 to break even? And this can be done really nicely with the tool, because you can very easily change the ratio between the woody crop and the arable crop. So it's kind of a very simplified sensitivity analysis. So if you play with this little sharing slider, you would find that the ideal annuity to become positive, the ideal percentage would be 17%. So with 17% of woody component, it would be positive. So coming back to this graph here, you can see 4 lines, and if you see the 4, just focus on the green line, which is just the woody component. So of course, in the very first year, you're very much in the negative, because you have all the investment costs, as I mentioned, the GPS measurement, the planting costs, the buying the materials, and so on. And then after 5 years, you would run into the first harvest. That will not cover all the investment, but then harvest after harvest, you can see this little jump. So this is how your annuity becomes more and more positive. So if you use trees on the entire plot, this would be the ideal scenario, but then obviously you would not be entitled a farmer. Then you would be, I guess, a forester. And the yellow line is the annuity if for just the crop, so it always stays below the 0 line. And the other two are the 2 combinations that I just mentioned with 8% and the other one I can't see because it's covered. Yeah, so you can run very simple scenarios. And some reflections on the agroforestry calculator. It's a wide range of possible calculations for inputs and outputs, and it is an ideal financial assessment for doing short rotation copies. And the data can be generated very quickly and is very effortless to use. More default values can be used, for example, calculating costs for storage and so on. And you can also run scenarios where you use the energy on your own farm and substitute energy that you have to buy via oil or gas from the energy provider companies. Coming to the conclusions for all 3 models. So let's say the intact model that was presented by Sarah is a useful decision support tool and looking primarily on the tree component, and it does not include the crop and livestock components in the calculations. And the tool would benefit from a period longer than 20 years. I already saw in the chat that as in economic terms, 20 years is too short, but on the other hand, often farmers would like to have some positive figures after fewer years than 20 years. So I think it's very valuable also to look on in the first 5, 10, 20 years, and easy to follow step-by-step process. The farm safe, I'm sorry, I have to let the dog out for a second. So the farm safe model is more focusing on research and is very detailed. As you've seen, there's a lot of information you need. And it's also, of course, the possibility to play with the figures more precisely. It could benefit from a better user-friendly interface and database, and also more tree species should be included in the future. Our tool, the Agroforestry calculator, is very much oriented towards the practice. It's very easy to use because Excel, everybody or most people know how to use Excel. And of course, in the future, it would also benefit from some improvements, like, for example, include more languages. Currently, it's very German-based, and also the default values that need to be expanded. If you want to use it, let's say, more in the southern part of Europe or more the northern part, because the standards that we are using here are very much adopted to German standards with respect to the yields and also with respect to the yields of the trees. But with these modern translation tools, it's also possible to install plugins in Excel, so the surface can also be shown in other languages. Yeah, maybe we are repeating ourselves, but all the tools you've seen today can be found in the tools catalog. It's a website catalog that's run by the DigitAF project. There are currently more than 50 tools that you can see, and you can filter if you want to have economic tools or biodiversity or any topic that you're interested in. And also very interesting is the associated data catalog, because the data catalog also gives you a lot of information you may need to run your own tools. You're interested in carbon research data or interested in more economic data. And of course, everybody here is invited to add their tools to the catalog and to the data catalog. And it's very straightforward and easy to do. And there will also be a short assessment of the fairness, and yeah, it's a platform everybody is invited to use and have a look. I think that's so far for the presentations, and we will hang out a little bit longer here for any questions and discussion. Thank you. Thank to my other colleagues, and yes, the floor is yours. Thank you. See if like this. Okay, I give it back to Romain.
Thank you for these presentations. We had quite a lot of questions. And also thanks, Paul, for answering some of those questions. They are all in the Q&A station, if space, if you want to see the question, but maybe I can just ask them for you. Okay, so we had quite an issue with the intact tool on the DigitAF website, but Sarah, you answered this question, but maybe you want to add to tell it to everyone.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you. So I wanted to inform you that maybe you noticed the tool is currently offline, and I am discussing with the programmer how to solve those technical issues. He messaged me this morning that he solved some issues, so I will have a look to see if the tool is working again. And once it's working again, I will make it public again, the link. If you are really interested and really want to be updated as soon as the tool is online, feel free to send me an email or to put your email address in a Q&A chat because there was someone else who asked for it, and there you can add your email address. So yeah, I hope it will be online soon. Let's see.
Thank you, Sarah.
I see that Fausto is responding. He says, may I ask a question?
May I just answer one question that was raised by Jerry Lawson from EURAF? Thanks, Jerry, for the questions. You say that short rotation copies you can grow for 20 years. Actually, it says you have to harvest once within 20 years. You can grow them faster, longer. However, if you do a plantation, so that means 100% just trees, then after some years it's difficult to resprouting of the tree. So at some point you need to convert the whole thing, and I think this is the issue. And the longer you wait, the more difficult the harvest becomes. And I also think that a 100% tree cover is not really a agroforestry, at least not to the German definition, which is a maximum of 40% of trees in order to call it agroforestry.
Yes, Fausto, you can go ahead. I've authorized your mic, I think.
Fausto, if correctly, you have your mic available, and if it for some reason is not working, feel free to write down your question in the chat, and then I can answer it.
Okay, I can find the question if you can't manage to open your mic. Okay, so Fausto's question was...
I already answered that one. I already answered Fausto's question, but I thought maybe he has a new question that he wanted to ask. But I elaborately answered his question.
Oh, the one about the... I have one question from him, which was, I am curious about commercialization, especially for those non-commodity processes. Who do that? Maybe that's the one.
Yes, no, I didn't answer that one indeed. I don't think I'm the right person to answer that question. Maybe Rico, do you have an answer to Fausto's question?
Is it in the Q&A? This
Yes,
question?
it is.
Oh, there are so many. Where is it? Will the presentations be shared? Yes.
Quite
Is
in
this
the
one?
middle.
No.
Not this one. It's quite in the middle.
It's
I
the
am
fifth
curious.
question from the top.
Yeah.
It's the fifth questions from the top and then down.
I'm curious about the commercialization. This
one.
Right. I mean, I can only speak for us as a not-for-profit organizations. We have big issues with commercialization of everything. I think the commercialization is really difficult in things that have been developed in research and development over many, many years. I think the only commercialization probably that is very close would be that, for example, advisors are offering consulting services, and they can use these tools, and of course they can make a living from the consulting procedures, and so that's I think the type of consultation commercialization that is available, I guess, because I can understand that not every farmer wants to know all these tools and wants to get into the details, and it can be very complex at some point. So, I mean, for our tools, it's not meant to make money from it because it's already been paid through different research projects.
Hello. Could you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your answer. I'm trying to compare different contexts regarding what you have presented today, and I'm based in Latin America, specifically in Central America. Here, agroforestry systems are around commodities like coffee, like cocoa, like palm, etc. So the point is that the system itself is seen like a companion for the commodity. So the order of importance is not the same. And at the same time, the culture of the cooperative or farmer organization are around the commodity. So the other crops, the other companion crops are, I can say, unattended. So cooperative is centered in the commodity, and the farmer has to look how to channelize that process to the market. So at the end of the day, what we bring to this smallholder is more work and not necessarily incomes through the commercialization of this product. That was my question, because here is a kind of barrier, cultural barrier with cooperative that identify itself like cacaoteras, cafetaleras, palmeras, and don't attend that company. So that was my question. That's it. Many thanks for your answer.
Was this addressed to me or?
No, I'm just trying to share with you both reality here and where are some of the challenges when we are trying to promote agroforestry system without having a support to channelize, to commercialize the other products, not necessarily the commodity that the cooperative farmer organization are selling or are exporting.
Yeah, thank you, Fausto. I think it's more of an statement rather than a question, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you for the explanation, for the experience. Yes, Rico, go ahead.
Maybe just a general remark. You know, we've been testing so many tools and we're working on so many tools, and very often the feedback is, oh yeah, who's going to use those tools and why are you developing it if nobody's really using it so much, and so on. And this is partly true, but I also think it's very important to train advisors and train people that are using it. So we are available. Yes, we are not living in the ivory tower. We are in the field. We are doing workshops. We can be contacted. We have all these living labs. So our suggestion is, if you would like to know more and if you would like to apply this to your farm, you're always free to contact us or our colleagues, and we will try to either help directly or try to put you in contact with the ones or advisors or other people that are firm in using these tools and maybe are able to help you. So I can understand that if you just a download page and then you're left alone is very quick, can be frustrating, but it's not that we are out of this world. So we can always try to, find good solutions even for individual problems. So I mean, that's all you can do.
Yes, feel free to contact us if you have other questions. But we have some questions on the Q&A space. You've already answered them, but it might be interesting for everyone to just have the answers right now live. So I'm just going to read the question and the very full question from Reski Feders. I will read that. So thanks for presenting this intact tool. Is it directly targeting the farmers who want to calculate the benefits before implementing agroforestry? I also must say, as an agronomist, I am skeptical about the time spent. Most of the fruit timber tree commercial lives exceed 20 years. Also, the management practices, at least what we showed, lack a huge part of pest management. Focus was on weeds, but a lot of those fruit trees need huge protection from fungi, insects, etc. One other thing, how did you come so easily with the yields of different species? And does it take into account the location, the variety, etc.? Production phase, small trees with no production, etc. So I know Paul and Sarah, you already answered on the chat. Maybe you want to tell everyone.
Of course, I can just read out loud what I've written. So Intact is especially useful in the exploratory phase. That means if a farmer has an idea of their agroforestry project, like in that early stage, it's already nice to have a slightly idea, like, okay, what would the costs be for that project, and what would be an estimate of the yield, and that is what is that's what Intact is for. So it helps you, especially in that phase. And the time span was chosen for 20 years. But yeah, like Rico said as well, we develop tools, we try and test them out on case studies, and then we learn, okay, the initial idea of 20 years is maybe not the best time span for reality, so we should exceed that. And like that is especially what was really valuable in DigitAF, that we were able to develop tools, but also to test them and then to further improve them. So I've written that, we experienced that the time span indeed should be better if it's exceeded. So for our next steps, we would like to lengthen the time span. And then he was talking about pest management, and I wrote down, I only could work with the data available, and I did not have data on pest management yet, and there was also not pest management data available from the living labs that I did the calculations on. So once that data is available, I could add it. And if there's no data available for pest management costs, then not. But of course, it's still in development, and if there's more data available, we could definitely add it. And that's why we also have the data set link in the DigitAF catalog. If you have a certain data set or prices of certain costs or income, you can always upload it there. And regarding the yields of different species, I would please refer people to go to the manual of Intact. I've clearly, like, step-by-step explained how that was calculated. So yeah, then I would like to refer people to that manual. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Sarah. We have questions about farm safe. One from Andy Linder. I can see a sensitivity analysis section in the tool. Could you elaborate on this and which factors can be analyzed? Paul, you've already answered on the Q&A session. Maybe you want to add something, or maybe anyone would like to add something too. I have authorized your mic, Paul, but I don't know if it's working. So I'm just going to read, but just stop me if you're there, your answer. The answer was the Farm Safe tool allows one-click analysis of the sensitivity of net margin relative to the default scenario of the 1 tree only, 2 arable, and 3 agroforestry system. 2 production levels, B non-grant revenue, C grants, D labor hours, and E all costs. Because the model is an Excel environment, a specialist user could also analyze the effects of other factors. If you have more questions, don't hesitate to ask. Other questions about farm safe from Ramos. Is it planned to expand farm safe to more than 1 tree species per plot? And 2, the effect of tree rows on productivity is proved. How is that effect included in farm safe?
Paul, I don't know if you want to answer this.
Yeah. I think thanks very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Paul.
Yeah, so thanks for the question. I think at present, the plan is not to add more than one species, but you can add together, particularly in sort of farm safe, if you add together a hectare of apple agroforestry and an apple of nut agroforestry, then you would probably get an idea of what a combined system would be. And that was the first question. What was the second question? No. About the LER, so the land equivalent ratio, the ratio of the area required if you're growing trees and crops separately to that growing agroforestry. Yes, those land equivalent ratios can be calculated within the yield safe model, but the actual value is very dependent on what you assume is the tree only system.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Another question from Jan Berger. Congratulations for improvements in all models, so thank you. And the question, do you plan or think to include also carbon sequestration of below ground roots of trees as part of externalities in farm safe?
So I have typed in an answer to that. So thanks for the question. So when yield safe was originally developed, it was primarily looking for above ground biomass, but within yield safe version 2, there's a parameter to include the proportion of the biomass going to roots, so that can be included. So below ground biomass in roots can be added, and we have developed another model called Eco Yield Safe, which includes the Roth-C soil carbon model, so you can predict what the effect of different trees for different starting soil carbon contents might be on soil carbon over a period of time.
Maybe it's also worth mentioning that there are also very specific soil carbon models that we have also worked on, and you can also find them in the digital tool database. And there are, last time I looked, there was 13 models for carbon. So it's a hot topic anyhow, and maybe sometimes it's maybe be more straightforward to do a specific use a specific tool for the specific questions, but it's always nice to have it integrated in already very well established bigger tools.
We have 2 more questions. The first one from Foster again. Would you share any document or research that nourished the tools?
I don't really know what is meant with nourished. Like, do you mean like data sets or like a scientific paper that was the foundation of building tools? I don't know really how to interpret that question.
Foster, if you're here.
Yeah, me neither, sorry.
Okay.
I mean, I once more in the data catalog also there are links under each tool to background publications and also upfront publications using the tools, and also documentations and sometimes also videos on how to use the tools. So I think the first and easiest would be to look in the tool and data catalog to look for additional information. And beyond that, usually there's a documentation to each tool where you can find the background data there, and most of the time we are using publicly available open access data, and we try to add a lot of the data also in the data catalog.
Thank you, Rico. We have one last question from Jerry. Jerry, I don't know if you're here. I've authorized your mic. Otherwise, I will just read your question. It's for Rico. So you said in most countries, I think also Germany, you can grow short rotation crop base for up to 20 years without changing the official use of the parcel to forestry. So that could be more economic given the high prices of chips and even biochar, more profitable than agroforestry.
Yeah, thanks, Romain. I answered the questions already to Jerry. So that's done.
Okay, great. I didn't say that. We don't have more questions. And it's the end of the webinar, so I think we can stop here. Thank you very much for being here today and for all of your questions. Very, very interesting. Of course, you will have a replay available on YouTube. We will share the info on our website and also on LinkedIn to share the replay. And we will see if we can also send the PowerPoint. We don't know yet, but we will try to, of course, obviously, if you need it. Thank you very much and have a great day.